meteorologist Mark Molnar as your host for Weather Northeastern. Let's get into precipitation amounts across the country. Mostly benign out here out west as we get that ridge pattern starting to build in for especially early to middle portion of next week. This will begin to break down in about 2 or 3 weeks. I'll have more details on that. Here across the Gulf Coast from Houston over to Shreveport, New Orleans, Birmingham, Alabama, even as far north as Linden, Texas here, we're seeing a lot of rainfall, even up into portions of the mid-Mississippi River Valley, and of course, moderate to light rainfall here further north with a few disturbances across the north. Let's take a look at that pattern we're setting up for next week. We start that proverbial ridge out west here, unfortunately, not good for the drought, but there may be relief coming on towards the later portion of next week into the early portion of the following week towards the end of April. But here across the east, that trough begins to dig in the central portion of the country as it has been with lots of severe weather, and of course that will be propagating to the east, and this trough will be reinforcing especially next week as we get a stronger system that ejects across the Ohio River Valley into the Great Lakes. Now of course there is another pattern setting up for portions of the end of April, and this pattern has quite a few deep troughs. One low pressure starting to cut off here in the west coast area, so bringing in some cooler temperatures and rainfall. And here across the east, we start to really bring the troughiness in, and a lot of clouds and a lot of colder weather. So we're not done with the cold weather yet. It's not going to be like 30s or 20s for highs, but nevertheless plenty of 40s and 50s across the east with a lot of disturbances and a lot of rainfall. So this is not very good news, especially if you have outdoor plans. Let's take a look at those surface maps heading on into your Saturday, starting off the weekend here. Nice and warm across much of Pennsylvania, heading on to the 70s across the I-80 corridor, even up I-81 into New York State here, upper 60s. It's here across New England we start to get into some of that rainfall here across the Northeast as this frontal system is moving to the east. Take a look at this Sunday. We blast those systems to the east here. We start to build in more high pressure. It's going to be a cooler high pressure. Nevertheless, lots of 50s and even some 60s south of Interstate 80 here across Pennsylvania. Great Lakes look to be in the 50s and even some 40s into northern New England here. Heading on into your Monday, take a look at this. Not too bad across the Northeast. We start to get some system moving in from the west here with the warm front. Warmer towards Cleveland and Pittsburgh, you'll start to get into the mid to high 60s, but it's here across the Susquehanna River Valley up towards portions of New England. We hang tough with those 50s as the rainfall moves in from the west, especially from the late morning into the early afternoon hours. Moderate rainfall moving to the east, and then look at this. Tuesday, that system pulls off the coast. Still hung up here with an inverted trough across the Northeast, so moderate showers likely across the Capital District of New York, up to Burlington, the Adirondacks. And here across New England, we're still dealing with that wet weather. You can see kind of a marine layer kind of holding tough here, keeping temperatures into the 50s, especially along the coast. That's going to do it for this edition of Weather Northeastern. I'll have a 5-day outlook here in 10 seconds for my hometown viewers, upper Susquehanna region of upstate New York into northeast Pennsylvania. Don't forget to like me on Facebook at MeteoMark, subscribe to me on YouTube at MeteoMark.com, it's Twitter at WX Northeastern, and Google Plus at MeteoMark. Here's that 5-day from your weekend all the way to the midpoint of next week. Look at this Saturday, nice and sunny. Get out there and enjoy it. Pushing 70 in some areas, especially towards Scranton, Binghamton area in the high 60s. Heading on into your Sunday, that system, that front pretty much moves through with little fanfare. Look at this, temperatures still getting into the mid to high 50s. Heading on into Monday, rain showers developing, looks a lot cooler, low 50s. That will be kind of a cooler rain, up to 1/4 to 1/2 inch of rain likely. And then we extend into your Tuesday here and your Wednesday. Still looking cooler yet. Temperatures being held down into the upper 40s and low 50s for highs here. Lots of clouds with that trough developing. That's going to do it for this edition of Weather Northeastern.